I
All right,
can.
good evening. Thank you. And Gospel, please can you confirm to me that you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
All right, awesome. Our interview for today is Moses Afolabi, and he's being interviewed for a position which the recruiter will be disclosing to us at the end of this call. And the person that will be interviewing him is Power, who is a global talent recruiter recruiting for an undisclosed company. So, Power, Moses, you have the floor.
Yeah, Moses, go ahead. I think there might be some mix-up, but
Yeah. Good evening, God's power.
yeah, good evening.
Okay, so I would like to go ahead and introduce myself, and of course, I'm open to questions that you have for me following that. I can you confirm you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
And please, I'll be turning off my camera to optimize my network. Yeah.
Sure, it's fine.
Okay, so I'm Afolabi Moses Eniola, and I'm a pro manager at Bonds. I Bonds is more of a software as a service company, and at Bonds I handle mostly products, yeah, customer success, product development, project management, and the like. So that is that about me. So I would like to know more about you. God's power.
All right. So my name is Godspar Esturabo. I would say I'm someone who likes the future of work. So a remote work advocate, and also a program tech product manager at Clear Global, which is formerly Translators Without Borders. My focus specifically is around language technology and AI, developing models to enable translation on the global stage across digital experiences and, of course, programs as well. So, yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I do. Thanks.
Okay, so coming from, let me just pick it from where you stopped. Talking about what you do. Can you just like run me through a a typical day in your life? Yeah, as a PM.
All right. Um, as a PM, I think my typical day is probably like every other day. But one key thing I'm going to actually talk about is just number one, getting clarity, research, everything, and of course, using that research to actually move the team forward. So yeah, that's my normal day. So yeah, I think we can pick up the conversation now, make it a two-way conversation, and I'll get to understand your own expertise, your own experience as a product person. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, that's very much
Awesome.
okay with me.
So
Uh,
this is
okay,
yeah.
so
Can you hear me? Go ahead. Go
okay,
ahead before I comment.
yeah, I can. Please just go on, just go on.
Yeah,
That's power.
yeah. So this is for a mid-level role, and
Yeah,
I'm supposed to actually interview you for this specific role, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the setup
yeah.
we have for the interview prep. All right, good. So the first thing I would like to know, specifically, I know you have introduced yourself, but in an interview setting, I think one of the key questions that people would like to understand how to actually answer is, tell me about yourself, because this basically is a conversation starter for most interviews, and it's just beyond an introduction. So I would love you to actually kick off with that, and then tell everyone technically about yourself.
All right, thank you very much, God's power. So I'm Afolabi Moses Eniola again, and I'm a program manager, and I graduated from the University of Ibadan as a philosopher. Prior to my graduation, actually, I dabbled in a few things, and the one that stood out the most was sales, right? And it wasn't forced because, as the first son of a trader, automatically that responsibility fell on me. Though not until recently, when I broke into the product space, I didn't actually know that I was doing more of products because mostly what I was doing at the time was improving on us or on my mom's products, understanding the market terrain, seeing that customers are retained and ensuring that at each point our customers were satisfied. Now, since I graduated in 2021 from the University of Ibadan, I've acquired skills across data analytics, business development, and most recently, I graduated as a program manager from Old School. Following that, I picked up a role as an intern with Aka Payment, which is a financial technology company. Um, there, though I was an intern, I was able to pull a few strings and innovate around a card management solution, rather, because I was the program manager for the card issuing sector of, or the card issuing business unit of the organization. So with the card management solution, I was able to considerably reduce time to market for our clients because it was a B2B. I was able to reduce their time to market from 3 months to less than a week. And also with that solution, I was also able to open more income streams for the organization, raising the department's revenue by 10%. Since I left Aka Payment, I joined Bonds as an associate product manager. And at Bonds, mostly my responsibilities revolved around ensuring customer success, improving on the product, innovating around the product, and also tons and tons of integration with third-party solutions. Sorry, can you confirm you're still with me, Gospower?
Yeah, Muchi, I can hear you clearly.
Thank you very much. So I think that sums up the entirety of my product career journey so far. Except the fact that in my leisure period, I enjoy eating, sleeping, gaming, and also learning.
Awesome. I like the fact that you included some fun facts. Those fun facts definitely are conversation starters for us to have even a two-way conversation around your hobbies as well, which is a really good aspect of telling me about yourself, literally. So one thing you also spoke about when you were walking through yourself or your background was working on product improvement. And I think most hiring managers like myself who will be curious to say, can you walk me through your process of making product improvements? I think this is really important. So I would like to know, how do you go about product improvement? Feel free to use an example, a scenario where you have done this in the past, frameworks where you see the need for, just to give me an understanding of your process towards product improvement.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Ghost Power. So I will provide you a typical structure of how I go about my product improvement. I think the first thing is, well, obviously to understand the product and business goal, right? I'll use bonds for hint as an instance. So for bonds, the product goal is to be like a customer engagement or customer management solution, not at the level of Zoho, for instance, but at a level where you can take a deep dive into your customers, engage with them, send them emails, send them engage them through multiple messaging channels and send them targeted ads, right? So that would be my first stop, right? Understanding the product and business goal. Then after that, once that is established, I try to understand my users, right? There are various ways of grouping users. I can easily say my target audience are, let's say, SMEs or large scale businesses, but I usually enjoy um, being giving a broader like view to my types of users. So along that line, I often group my users as skeptics, and I group them along the lines of skeptics, diehards, and those that are still considering using the product. So the skeptics are those that wouldn't use the product for anything. They don't just care about our product. Those that are still the second group of users are those that are still open to using our solution. Probably they have something they are using before. Maybe they use a competitor's solution, or they are even an untouched category of people, right? And also the third group will be the diehard. These are people that come with me, they are using a solution, right? So usually I often go for the those that are still open to using our solution. So along that line, I narrow it down. I prioritize. I sort of look for their pain points and prioritize along the lines of, say, impact or time to get to market and the likes. Then, having prioritized the pain points, then I move to providing a solution for the pain points. Usually, I come from multiple angles, right? And make sure that any solution I'm providing is end to end and it will easily
Okay.
integrate with the solution we currently have. Now, once that is done, what I also look out for is to monitor the metrics. Of course, I would have set a metrics what I want to see. So maybe a 50% adoption rate. And once that is achieved, once I've been able to achieve that, I look at ways to optimize the solution to improve usage. So that's how I go
Awesome.
about product improvement.
One thing about this, interviews with product is that your explanation sometimes lead to another question. And I think one of the key points you raised was understanding the user. And I would have loved if you kind of gave more detail into the process in which you actually adopt when it comes to understanding the user pain points, the needs, motivation, aversions, whichever you're actually looking to understand for the user. What specific things or what specific processes have you used in the past, and what's your go-to process when it comes to understanding your user base or understanding prospective users?
All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to note some things down so that I won't
Sure.
miss some of my thoughts. Yeah, so I would list about four approaches which I take to understand um, my users. The first will be market research. Of the philosophy that sometimes to make things get quick to market, there are people that have gone ahead of you, right? So instead of going through the rigorous process of starting all over, you can just copy and improve, right? So my market research, I try to understand the my competitors in my terrain. For bonds, I know there's Engage, there's Clever Tap. So and these are like leading competitors both home and abroad. So sign up on their solution, try to understand what they've done so far. That is one approach I take. Now, secondly, I conduct regular interviews, right? So my own process of product management moves from ideation to design and prototyping. Then I validate my solution. So before I even start churning out features or features are developed, I conduct like rigorous testing with users. So one of the approach I mentioned is interviews. So I have my prototype ready. I already have like some users within my circle, for instance, on standby that I can easily reach out to, test the features with them, test the arrangement of my buttons as little as that, test even my typos, right, with them. So that is another approach that I do. So I've mentioned marketing, market research, and I've mentioned interviews. Also, I integrate my solution with a third party solution, which is Hotjar, right? So with Hotjar, I'm able to track usage of key features, or all the features actually of my solution. So with Hotjar, I can easily wake up at intervals. Say I'm having a trouble sleeping, I can just turn on my laptop, check what the users are using the most, check the feature that they've been using the least, right? And see ways to improve on that. Now, the third thing I also do is database. The fourth thing rather that I also do is database query. Now, I'm not so strong on that aspect, right? But of course, I employ AI solutions to query my database, and there's also room for learning, right? So one of the skills that I'm currently picking up is writing queries. So I can easily just go into the database, see what is happening, see the kind of users that I have, see what they are doing, right, and prefer solutions along that line to my users. So just to run you through it,
Awesome.
through that market research, interviews, using third-party solutions like Hotjar and database query.
Awesome. It's really great to actually hear about your process, specifically around testing analytics with tools like Hotjar. There are so many more tools, of course, and I think all of these processes would give us insights, which leads to my next question around what you do with these insights in terms of once we actually do analytics, we have lots of things to do, and in a million things to do, we have to decide which of them comes first. And with all this data, I'm curious, how do you go about identifying the right bet for you and your team as a product person? Because then you have to take this back to the team, get buy-in, work with your engineering team to actually implement it. And how do you actually convince us that this is actually what's the bet to actually develop in terms of putting in resource and everything? So how do you prioritize based on data? How do you identify the right thing to do?
Okay, thank you very much for that, God's power. Okay, so one of my prioritization technique would be level of impact, right? Um, okay, so one of the ways I build my or I groom my sprint backlog is rigorous testing of the solution, right? And also, there are just sometimes that you just see nice to have solutions, but nice to have features, right? But then one thing I've put in place, right, is a structure for prioritization. So um, there's this I would call it cadre, right, of or levels of priority that we give to our features, right? So just to quickly run you through it, there's the urgent features, and this bug obviously comes into that category as well, right? And also sometimes customer requests, because we do more of business to business, right? And we're trying as much as possible to help our clients, which are businesses, to acquire users, right? So there's the urgent level, there is the high level. High comes after urgent. If there are no features that are currently urgent, we pick up the high ones next. Also, there is the medium level, there is the low level, and there are some that we don't even attach priorities to at all. So these are features that when developers are done or they are free, they can just like pick up and quickly fix up. Now, three things we do, right? The first one I would like to point out is the sprint planning session. So of all the features that we build, mostly what the product manager does on the team is having validated the feature and saying that, okay, this is a problem that we should solve. We allot level of priority to it. Then we meet with the developers on the first day of sprint. So we usually run like 10 days worth of 10 days long sprint, right? So the first day of the sprint is usually investigation. We come on the call. We work fully remote. So we come on the call. We discuss amongst each other's, assign shared sizes to features. So some features are extra large, some are large, some are extra small, some are small. But the whole idea is on the first day, each developer gets his or her 5 days worth of task. And by the fifth day, all tasks should be awaiting deployment on the dev environment. So the remaining 4 days, so we have 4 days left. So 3 days out of the remaining 4 days is meant for rigorous testing, all sort of testing, regression and what have you. Then the last day is when we go live and everyone is on standby to make sure that things are working as they should, nothing breaks on live environment. So again, just to sum it up, one of the ways which I prioritize my product is there's already like a set structure. We have a quarter goal. So let's say this quarter goal is we want to do more of integrations, right? And there are features like integrating with Firebase and integrating with WhatsApp, and other features like change the button color. Obviously, the integrations with third parties take preeminence, and even before we meet with developers, I've done a deep dive into this API references to make sure that everything we need is provided, and in no time solutions are provided. So that's how I go about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. I hope this gives a lot of insights to other PMs on the call. I think that leads me to my next question, which is a little bit like a two-in-one question, but I would ask both so that you can actually think about them through. It's always fine to kind of take out seconds during interviews to actually think about your answers. Don't be in a hurry to always give an answer. It's always fine to say, okay, let me think through it. So the first one is a scenario around prioritization. So let's say, for example, you have done your queries, you have Mixpanel, you do your research, your cohort analysis, and within your user base, you find out that there's a particular gap you need to fill in terms of there's a feature that's needed, a problem to be solved. And this pattern, you have identified this pattern across, let's say, 70% of your user base, meaning a huge chunk of your users all have this problem and would likely benefit from a solution. But then 70% of your users are also competing with a request, a customer request from a company that brings in a large chunk of your revenue. How would you go about prioritizing these two demands as a product person when you are in a situation where the stakeholders, meaning the C-suites, are really interested in making that business partner or that customer happy who is demanding a particular feature, which 70% might not use, versus delivering a feature that would actually create an impact on the platform for a huge percentage of your user base. So I'd like you to think about this, and if you want me to go through it again, please let me know.
Okay, just before I take a few seconds to think this through, I just want to run you through what I got already. So the question you're asking me now is, we have a feature request from a partner or a client, right? That gives us 70% of our revenue.
A high value client, exactly.
Or is that what you're saying? A high value client is requesting for a feature that will not impact other users, right, on the platform. And I've done my research on another hand, rather, and I saw that there's this feature that would affect 70% of
your user
my
base.
users. Yes. So I would just like to ask a clarifying question before I take a time off to probably think through it. While I'm doing my research, right, I want to put you at this omnipresence level, right? You are up there, you see everything. So I'm going to ask you that while I'm doing my research, did I find out that the 70%, the feature that will affect 70% of my user, will the high valued client come in to that 70%? I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yes, they are part of that 70%. But the reality is that the reality is that they have made a request for something else entirely, and by high value, they bring in a chunk of the revenue. That's one thing you need to consider. That's one. So it's basically saying, what would you do as a product manager when you pit user impact versus business impact? How would you go about handling such situation?
Okay. I was going to ask a few more clarifying questions because I wouldn't like to give a vague response. Sure. And one of my clarifying questions would be that Definitely. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do I put this question now? On a scale of 1 to 10, how long will it take me to achieve each of these features? The one for the high valued clients, the one for the 70% database. Do you have like an idea of how long it's going to take me to work on it?
I have an idea, but this would be kind of part of your explanation in terms of what you consider. So if I give you that, technically it's given a bit of the answer as well in terms
Okay,
of
I think
what you would
I
do
believe
in such
that as
situation,
a
right?
PM, one of my role is to get one of my role is to get to the crux of every matter. I can't just like pick up situations, pick up problems at the middle of it and not get to the root. So any information you can give me would actually be
Yeah.
valuable along the lines of what is my resource like, how many developers do I have, what's their capacity, because
Okay.
these are the things
So
that
let's
I
say
would
you,
like to consider.
let's say you have a squad of a product team, a product squad with you, which comprises of, let's say, 5 engineers, 1 product operations person, 2 designers, and a data engineer. This feature would take, for the client request, it would take at least a month and a half to actually deliver. For what you have identified, it would actually take, let's say, 3 weeks to actually deliver. What would you do in such situation? Let me know if you have more questions as well.
Okay, okay. I think I can conveniently answer at this level, but if you still indulge me a little bit, do you have like a an overview of the capacity of each developer? So let's discuss it along the lines of picking up days worth of task, right? So like how many days worth of task can a developer handle? I have 5 developers, right? So like how many days can each
Yeah,
handle?
let's say according to your velocity, um,
Mhm.
it makes a lot of sense to say that each of your developer on that team, which represents 5, can handle at least, um, let's say, 5 to 8 days of work to actually deliver this feature. Yeah.
5 to 8. Okay, 5 to 8 days of work. Sorry about the noise. Okay. I would go through the route of um divide and conquer, right? Um, Obviously, the business has its goal, right? So the first thing I want to understand is what, I don't know if you can help with that, but the first thing I would have loved to understand at this level now is what is the business goal, right? Though it's not supposed to be cast in stone, but what is our goal? Are we looking to improve customer users, to improve user retention, or we are looking at bringing in money? Each business have their priorities. So
Yeah. Since
can you
I'm
provide
actually
an answer
making it
along
a
that
lot more
line?
complex if I give you like more specific details. So let's say you decide what the goal is as the PM, because this is a scenario, and then tell us your decision based on the scenario you have created. Say, for example, you decide what the goal is around um, improving experience, making money. You decide which of them it would be, and then tell us your process to actually prioritizing both of those expectations.
Okay. I think the route I'll take here is to play on my developers' capacity, right? So I have 5 engineers, and each can handle at most 8 days worth of task. So that means the 5 of them at each point, right, can handle 40 days worth of task, right? So what I'll do at this point is the feature that I've identified takes 3 weeks, and I'm counting in working days, so that's 15 days worth of task, right? I
Yeah.
can easily assign 2 developers to this feature that I have identified, right? Because I definitely want to kill 2 birds with a stone. I know that at a point, even if the revenue is there, my stakeholders will still want me to drive usage, and this is a crucial point. If I lose that 70%, I'm still going to have to pick them up, then now increase again. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I
Also,
have 5 developers. What I would at this share my developers into a group of 2, so 3 on one end to handle the clients with the chunk of the chunk of revenue, and two, to handle the clients with to handle the users that I have identified that a feature can impact massively. Now, while those ones are working, whoever finishes first, most likely on the ones impacting most of my users, will then come to join the ones working with the client. But one thing I would put to use here would be my communication skill, right? Everybody knows that things are not like cast in stone. Anything can even happen. One of the developers can drop along the line, right? So one thing I'll just do mostly is communicate, if like give thorough communication. I already have my own goals. The business has its own goals, and I've seen that both of them are actually valid because they're not making money. They might even me as a product manager, right? So I'll communicate effectively, tell them that okay, this is what we'll do. We have to designer. Let's break ourselves into a team of two. A designer joins one team, a designer joins the other team, and they both work together. Now, this is where my own openness to learning and some of my minor skills to come into play because I would also be able to assist, right? I don't just want to be the boss. I want to be a part of the team. So I'll be able to assist in, okay, as we are working, let me test. As we are working, let me test. So we work together as a unit to make sure that in the end, everyone is happy.
Awesome. I think this was a trick question in itself because one of the reasons this question would actually come in is for um, the interviewer to understand your ability to switch between strategy and execution, which I think is really crucial. Ideas are ideas without execution, and ideas are worth nothing. That's the reality in the product space. And I definitely love your focus on number one, velocity. Understanding the team velocity is one thing. You need to actually point it out when you are answering such questions. And at first, it looked like you were asking so many questions, but I want you guys to understand that that's what you need to do. It's not an interrogation, it's a two-way conversation. You need to have clarity to actually provide the right answers. If he didn't ask some of those questions, probably he'll be answering something else. But I was able to pinpoint number one, velocity, number two, allocation. So you want to understand beyond the velocity of my team, what do we have on ground? What do we have our hands on right now? And how can I actually work with my squad to effectively deliver on these things? I think that's very important. The other area you would have also touched on as well is, of course, it's a risky game, especially when you have high value clients that demand things and require them immediately. So you want to have kind of a safety net. What happens if things don't go as planned when I'm actually juggling two things at once? You want to actually think about that and show that you are thinking from that perspective as well to actually deliver. So you are in situations, for example, we have had requests from clients that actually hold budgets of millions of dollars, to be honest, and you have to actually answer those clients. At the same time, you have to prioritize. You have to work on delivering features to actually create more impact and work towards the long-term goal of your product organization as well. So that's really, really important. I think, do we still have some time, or do we want to spend the next 20 minutes for open floor questions?
I think I'll leave that. Thank
Right.
you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Moses, and thank you very much, Gaspar. So I'll just ask if anybody has any question. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll take a few. Please, does anybody have any question for Gaspar, Moses? Just kindly use the raise hand button so I could call you. All right, while we wait for that, Gaspar, can you share feedback on how the interview between you and Moses went?
Awesome. So I think one of the first things in terms of how the interview went, it went well. I believe that there were a lot of technical approaches to the answers, which is a good sign. That's a positive. Um, Otherwise, I think it was a good interview. But also, one area I think things could have been better is controlling the room. I think that's also really important as well. So if you noticed later on, Moses was able to control the room by asking questions. I always say, don't be a sitting duck in terms of it has to be a two-way conversation. So you want to have really good questions to actually ask me to ensure that we can have a flow of communication. Otherwise, most times if it's a panel, it becomes an interrogation where you are being bombarded with lots of technical questions. And then if you are an entry-level person or a mid-level person, you actually struggle to kind of take a stand. So as much as possible, right from the introduction, you want to be able to actually control the room. And by saying controlling the room, I mean by asking questions, trying to understand things from the onset, and then delivering the right answers. Also, by taking your time as well. There's no pressure to always start responding immediately. Take a few seconds, make it clear. Let me think about my response. It doesn't mean you don't know your stuff. It means you are really convenient to actually provide those answers in a well thought out manner, in a way that you are seen as a subject matter expert. That way you're not just being interviewed, but you are actually sharing your experience and the value you can actually bring to the table. And that's one of the reasons why any hiring manager will be interested in saying, let's work with you, because they believe you can actually add something. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gospel, for that feedback. So I think some people have some questions here, so I'll just take them. So Odera Patak, you can go ahead and ask a question, please.
Hi everyone. Good evening.
Hi.
I want to. So my question is in regards to the interviewee's question about velocity. So is it also fine to sort of make assumptions and then ask the panel, oh, is this assumption correct? Like if I assume that, oh, I have worked with, like your question, I've worked with someone that, like, can I make this assumption on the hours of my own team, or do I have to ask the question for the panel to hear me and then it makes it interactive? I don't know if I'm expressing myself well.
Yeah. One of the reasons why a scenario question is actually put out there is because they want to see what you do in that situation, right? So it's a situational question. I give you a scenario. The scenario doesn't have to be exact, right? And then I want to understand what you would do when you are in such position, because then product managers find themselves in positions where it's tricky. They need to think through things. Then sometimes you don't have the framework to actually do the thinking for you. So I want to understand your approach to problem solving, and that's where you can actually have those assumptions, but make it clear that this is an assumption based on this scenario, and then they understand how you're actually thinking. The most important thing is your thought process, not if it's real or not. Does this help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Odera, for the question and Gospel. So I'll take Go Eri next. Okay, I think Eri dropped his hand.
No,
But
no. Sorry,
okay.
sorry.
Oh,
My hand is still up.
right.
I was talking. I didn't know I haven't unmuted my mic. Yeah,
All
thank you
right.
very much, Esther. Thank you very much, God's Power and Moses. I think who is the other guy that took the interview with you. Great stuff.
Yeah.
I must say I learned a lot from the interview. One of the things I learned is that there's really no right or wrong answers in these interviews. It's just your thought process that most of the interviewers wants to see. But I have a bit of concern about one of the questions you asked and the response he gave. I think it's a bit vague to me. I just know if we could go about that question again, where you asked about a situation where he has done his research and they're like he took research and then interviews or got feedback and there were like a lot of features he needs to implement, right? How does he go about prioritizing what feature to roll out first based on the numerous features he has? And his answer was a bit about started
Okay.
talking about sprint planning, um what's a bug, what's a task, and that's quite vague because I don't really think it answered the question of what metrics or what approach are you going to say, okay, based on this approach, based on this metrics, I'm going to do one, two, three features first. He was talking about plan. I know for planning is where after refinement has been done, Then we just refinement is where basically we understand the developers understand the tasks that they're meant to do, and then assign a user story to the
Yeah.
tasks. Then in planning, that's where we distribute the works based on priority, which the product manager must have done, right? So he spoke about at planning, they discuss the work and they distribute the work and they refine the work. And so I feel the answer is quite vague. So I don't know, that's like my own thinking, right? So is there a way you could help
Yeah.
throw more light as to the best
I
way?
would be sure.
Okay.
One thing I would like to say is that the reason the answer went with me as well is because that's a crucial part of discovery as well. It's like we say, planning comes before delivery. You can't deliver if you haven't planned, right? And so if you want to prioritize, for example, effort versus impact. So I asked the question was, you have so many data, there's a million things to do. How do you decide what's the right bet? That was the question I asked. And
Yeah.
so one of the answers there is also proper planning, which is estimation. Working with the right persons to actually see how, especially in the startup scene, this works. You want to know what's the quickest thing I can deliver to deliver incremental value. And the only way you can know is through estimation. I'm going to walk you through a process for this question quickly. But before I do so, Moses, do you have something?
Okay, so thank you so much for that, Henry. Also, while I was answering that, I also had like second thoughts. But why I went through that route is because usually I work in a startup environment, right? And you know
Yeah.
the saying, like fast paced. So in real life
Fastest one to best their
scenario,
win.
nobody wants to start doing rice model, draw out. I have like 60, 70 features in my backlog, right? And in a quarterly meeting, I've been told that we need to drive usage. We need to drive usage for like 50,000 users, just for instance. So all I want to do is, guys, this is what we have in our backlog. What are the low-hanging fruits you can pick up first, right? So we meet with the
Yeah.
developers. This is the low-hanging fruit. Also, which one are there also features that intersect? So take for instance, I want to do Google Ads. I want to do I want to be able to send out ads, or for instance now. So how do I do this now? You know, there's some features that when you solve one, you're solving two. And also there are some features that when you solve one, you have almost solved the other one. Do you get
Yeah,
so
the 80-20 rule.
do you get to which of those features do we have? What can we finish in 5 days and users will be happy? Like keep them busy, keep them going. So that's why I went through that route.
Okay. Awesome. So one other way I can actually explain this is by using an analogy which anyone can actually adopt for interviews. So you have data. Data basically is a whole bunch of information, except it's synthesized. You can't actually, give someone data and say this is what this data is saying, especially if they are non-technical or stakeholders. The first thing you need to do is perform a cohort analysis with your data in terms of you
Perform a
want to
what?
group
Sorry, please say
data,
that again.
a cohort analysis.
Cohort.
You want to group your data. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to group your data by certain criterias. And that can be decided using several indicators. For example, do you want to see your data by your active users? Do you want to see your data by specific demographics like gender, region, all of those things? Group them out. And that's one way you can actually synthesize data, because then you can start seeing pattern by specific cohorts. And what's the pattern? A pattern is, what is customer A saying? Is customer A saying the same thing as customer B? Is customer B saying the same thing as customer C? Or are they all saying three different things entirely? Now, the idea of cohort analysis is to understand the pattern, understand the trends within your data. And if you can see similarities, that's always a good sign, because when you want to see the similarities against certain indicators, you want to actually push them in buckets. And so what's the, for example, cohort analysis? Yes. So for example, what's the tag for this cohort? For example, is it a poor user experience? Is that what you want to see in your data? Is that the gap you're trying to actually fill? Is it a request? You're actually trying to see how many persons are actually making this specific topic, using this specific tag to actually make a request. You want to kind of group all this information and then bring them out to actually understand what I spoke of earlier on. Is customer A saying the same thing as B or C? And then once you have done that, you want to understand the representation of each of these customer types. Is customer A representing 30% of my user base? Is customer B representing 60% of my user base? Or is customer C representing, for example, 10% of my user base? The idea of understanding the representation is that you want to make decisions that will actually create not just impact on a specific group, but impact on the highest representation. Because then, if all of these are paying customers, active users, you want to say by delivering impact to 70% of these persons, I'm able to affect this, I'm able to actually pull the strings for these metrics. For example, an improved experience. For example, helping people cross the paywall. For example, renewals. For example, there's so many things you can actually use when deciding to prioritize. Then that's where you now jump into, once you understand the representation, which is the impact against the user base, you now want to actually talk about the efforts needed. Now, effort versus impact is a way for you to now prioritize. That's when you talk about effort versus impact. So am I going to take, for example, 3 months to deliver a feature for a cohort that is within, for example, a freemium plan? I wouldn't want to do that, right? And one tool you are able to use to know that is through, for example, Mixpanel, right? You're able to dig into data, see all those insights, and then make decisions in terms of prioritization. So you want to prioritize the representation that would be able to affect the metrics you are looking at. So that's, for example, are you looking at revenue? Are you looking at engagement? Are you looking at an improved experience, which is your CSAT, your CES, your effort scores, all of those things? You now prioritize versus that. So if I take less time to actually deliver more value, I want to prioritize that. If I take more time, but the value is really large and it's long term, I still want to actually prioritize that. If I take more time, less value, it's a no. You cross that out of your ideas and your whole potential things to actually work on, right? And this thing should be done even before discovery. Discovery is basically a more detailed documentation, right, as we go on. But now we are looking at what should we build and why should we build it. And your reason around what should be the problem. Understand the problem statement. And then the reason around why is the validation. Is this going to actually deliver impact? Not just shipping for shipping's sake, but shipping to actually deliver impact. I don't know if this helps in terms of the analogy to actually work with data.
Yes, it's awesome. It helps. It's great. I learned a lot from the answers, from the cohorts to the 80-20 rule. Basic, that's what I just got from the answers, right? 80-20 rule. What amount of work would deliver the greatest impact is also one of the techniques. Yes, it helps. Thanks a lot.
It's the best techniques to actually prioritize. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank W.
All right.
Yeah, over to you, Esther.
Yes, thank you very much, Eri, for that beautiful question, and thank you, Gospa, for providing an answer. So we can't take any further questions because we have 6 minutes to the end of this call, and I'm so sorry about that, Aramide, but I'm sure you could ask a question on the PIP group Slack channel, and you definitely get an answer, right? I just want to say thank you very much, Gospa, for taking our time to conduct this interview session this evening. Please let's appreciate Gospel with our emojis. And thank you also, Moses, because it's not easy to be put on the spot, right? And trust me, I was wowed by your replies, the questions that Gospel was asking. Thank you very much. And to everyone joining us for the first time, second time, third, and since forever, this is a mock interview which happens twice in a month, every Tuesday, 7 to 8 p.m. And you could also participate as an interviewee. You just need to let us know. And there's a link to sign up for this also. So you could also participate as Moses, an interviewee. There will be an interviewer that gets to prep you and ask you questions based on all these things. Also, we have an upcoming event on Thursday, a webinar that is titled themed Becoming a Technical Product Manager. And you definitely do not want to miss it. So please sign up using the Luma link and ensure that you get reminders towards the event on Thursday. It's going to be happening 8 p.m. And also, thank you everyone for taking our time
Sorry,
to.
where's the Luma link? Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, I would request Latifa. Latifa, please can you get the Luma link for people to sign up?
Thank you.
Okay, Latifa, can you hear me? All right, awesome. So it's on the group chat already. So you could just click on the link and sign up. And thank you everyone for staying with us this far. See you on Thursday. Bye everyone.